Chapter 1152 of One Piece has been dubbed as the Revelation Chapter, as Oda has finally decided to answer some of our biggest questions. But as is the case with One Piece, as soon as we have some answers, we get even more questions. We are pretty deep in the Elbaf arc at this point, and we're surrounded by a lot of politics and ancient grudges that go back literally centuries. In this chapter, Scopper Gaban casually explains the secret to defeating the world government's ultimate weapons. Zoro receives confirmation of abilities that he didn't even know that he possessed, and we get a pretty interesting Sanji moment in the chapter. And this is not even mentioning that a new member may be joining the Straw Hat crew. So before I give everything away in the intro of the video, let's dive into chapter 1152 of One Piece. So Gaban reveals that the Holy Knights who have been terrorizing Elbaf can only be stopped by Conqueror's Haki. But this isn't just any ordinary Conqueror's Haki, this is advanced applications that go beyond whatever Luffy's been throwing around. He specifically tells Luffy that he needs to improve his Conqueror's usage, which means that there's an entire tier of this power that we haven't even seen yet. So this reveal creates an exclusive club for the final war, and the membership list is terrifyingly short. Luffy obviously qualifies, Zoro just got confirmed this chapter that he has Conqueror's Haki, and Shanks also has it. Dragon has previously been demonstrated to have it, though we've never seen him use it directly. Yamato demonstrated it on Wano, Boa Hancock showed off her Conqueror's Haki at Amazon Lily, and Katakuri used it during the Whole Cake Island arc. This is pretty much it for the confirmed active users on the side of the good guys. Kaido had it, but he's currently taking a magma bath courtesy of falling into an active volcano. Big Mom possessed it too, but she's keeping Kaido company in that same pit of lava. Whitebeard wielded it, but he's been dead for over 2 years. Doflamingo also has it, but he's locked up in Impel Down. Eustace Kid had also demonstrated it multiple times, but Shanks had recently dealt with him and his crew, so it does seem like the Revolutionary Army is woefully unprepared for what's coming. Dragon might be able to handle one Holy Knight, but what about Sabo, Ivankov, and the fact that Kuma is barely functional at this point and he lacks his original personality? The rest of the Revolutionary Army consists of regular humans with standard training. Unless they are hiding an ace up their sleeves, they are literally bringing a knife to a gunfight. This does beg the question, what happens to fan favorite characters who are unable to use Conqueror's Haki? Does this mean that Robin, Frankie, Brook, Nami, Usopp, and Chopper are going to be spending the end of the series pretty much on the sidelines? Oda does a fantastic job in this chapter of revealing Zoro's Conqueror's Haki. This man has been unconsciously leaking this legendary power for months or maybe years, but yet somehow he remained completely oblivious to what was happening. Meanwhile, Luffy, who thinks Chopper is a good emergency food supply, immediately sensed it and just assumed Zoro had known about it. The dynamic is both hilarious and incredibly revealing about the relationship that these two have. Luffy's casual, yeah, it's been leaking, you know, carries as much weight when you consider the implications of this. How long has Zoro been unconsciously using Conqueror's Haki during their adventures? Did it contribute to his victory over King? Was it active during his clash with Kaido on the rooftop? The Ashura technique suddenly makes way more sense if he has been channeling advanced willpower without realizing it. Gaban's reaction is comedy gold as he says, "What a joke, Haki is only useful if you can recognize and control it. Is this how you intend to support your captain, who is one of the Yonko?" This isn't just constructive criticism, that's a legend telling Zoro that he's been wasting godlike potential, albeit through a lack of awareness. Then you have Sanji's situation, and honestly, Oda went out of his way to twist the knife here, as Sanji overhears Gaban mention that there is another Conqueror's Haki user in the Straw Hats. He immediately assumes that it's him as he raises his hand like an eager student, hoping that the teacher calls on him, but he gets completely ignored. Gaban doesn't even acknowledge Sanji's existence before turning to address Zoro directly. While yes, Sanji might be incredibly strong, but he doesn't possess that specific type of willpower which manifests as Conqueror's Haki. The parallels between Gaban and Sanji as the crew's strategic thinkers and combat specialists makes this rejection even more brutal. Now, this isn't to say that we've written off Sanji entirely and that he's never going to awaken Conqueror's Haki. The narrative parallels between Sanji and Gaban are too strong, and Oda loves to subvert our expectations. Right here in this moment, the message is clear. The monster trio just became the Conqueror's duo plus Sanji. The hierarchy shift is going to create some fascinating dynamics moving forward, and I do think that Sanji will have his very own moment where he activates Conqueror's Haki. Another insane reveal during this chapter is Luffy asking Loki to join the crew. This is either a brilliant strategy or a complete sign of madness. But knowing Monkey D. Luffy, it's probably a mixture of both. I mean, who looks at somebody who had murdered their own father and then declares, I want this guy on my team? This is easily one of the top impulsive recruitment attempts that Luffy has ever come out with. What makes this even more interesting is how everyone else reacts. Zoro and Sanji shoot down the idea, but their objections are purely practical. Loki's size and food consumption would create some logistical nightmares for the Straw Hats. They're not questioning Luffy's judgment of character, which is actually a massive vote of confidence in their captain's instincts. After everything that the Straw Hats have experienced together, they trust Luffy's ability to read people, even when the surface evidence suggests otherwise. Hajruddin knows Loki better than anyone, and he understands the ramifications of releasing him, and he refuses Luffy's diplomatic solution. He acknowledges that Luffy can instinctively tell that Loki is trustworthy. Even Loki's own brother recognizes that there's more to this story than the official narrative that everyone has been fed. Loki rejecting the offer means absolutely nothing in terms of future possibilities. Let's review the recruitment history here. Zoro was literally tied to a marine execution post when Luffy first invited him. Nami robbed them blind and betrayed them to Arlong before officially becoming their navigator. Robin spent her introduction arc trying to murder them in various creative ways. Frankie had to be physically kidnapped and dragged onto the Thousand Sunny against his will. The pattern is consistent. There's initial resistance followed by eventual acceptance once they understand what being a part of the crew actually represents. The timing of Luffy's invitation to Loki is strategically brilliant. It happens right as we're getting flashbacks that will prove Loki didn't kill his father, which means that Luffy's character judgment is about to be proven right once again. You have to also consider the practical element of what Loki brings to the table. He's a giant with apparent devil fruit powers. He has extensive knowledge of Elbaf's political situation, as well as personal grudges against the world government. If the Straw Hats are heading into a final war against the government, having someone with insider knowledge of their enemies will be invaluable. The King Harold flashback is fascinating, as when Loki arrives at the throne room, he discovers his father already being stabbed by multiple soldiers, and not the other way round. Apparently there was a coordinated assassination that someone else had planned and executed. Loki walked into the aftermath of a betrayal that had been planned without his knowledge or involvement. King Harold was supposedly aligning Elbaf with the world government, building schools instead of military training facilities, trying to modernize giant society in ways that contradicted centuries of warrior tradition. But he was also the king who ripped out his own horns, suggesting an internal struggle between his giant nature and whatever diplomatic path that he was attempting to follow. His soldiers turning on him indicates either a violent rejection of his world government alliance, or the even more sinister prospect that they were acting on direct world government orders to eliminate him after he had served his political purpose. The world government has a long history of using local allies until they become inconvenient and then disposing of them in ways that appear to be internal conflicts rather than external assassinations. The mysterious figure stealing the legendary devil fruit during this chaos adds another layer of calculated coordination to this assassination. What's even more damning is how Jarl, who was present during these events, had witnessed the truth firsthand. He was the one who spread the lie that Loki killed his father. Either Jarl genuinely misunderstood what he saw in the chaos, or he was actively complicit in framing Loki for Harold's murder. Given his political position and his obvious intelligence, it seems like it's more likely that he had lied. 14 years ago places the murder of King Harold right in the middle of the period when the government was aggressively expanding influence through the Seven Warlord system and other political manipulation tactics. By eliminating a giant king who was becoming too independent while at the same time stealing their most sacred devil fruit fits perfectly with the world government's standard operational procedures. This chapter's Mark of the Abyss revelation completely rewrites Shanks losing his arm in order to save Luffy. This wasn't just a dramatic sacrifice to teach a young boy about the dangers of being a pirate and that supposed power scaling inconsistency of a sea beast even being able to damage Shanks. This moment here was Shanks literally cutting away his physical connection to whatever control system that the world government uses to maintain loyalty amongst certain bloodlines. The Lord of the Coast didn't take his arm, Shanks used that attack as as the perfect cover to permanently sever his ties to the world government. Gaban calling Shanks the child of destiny carries implications that extend far beyond normal character importance. The term Destined One suggests prophecy and cosmic significance, which places Shanks on the same level as Shirahoshi or other characters born with special purposes. If Shanks had to physically remove the Mark of the Abyss in order to escape its influence, then what does this tell us about other people who still carry similar markings? Are there other destined individuals being controlled or influenced by this marking system? Could this be how the world government maintains absolute loyalty among certain celestial dragon bloodlines? The timing of when Shanks removed the mark is crucial. He did this exactly 1 year after stealing the Gomu Gomu no Mi from Who's Who, which means his decision to cut ties with the world government happened right around the time he committed the most significant act of rebellion against their interests. Another critical question which is posed from this chapter is, was the legendary fruit that was stolen from Elbaf actually the Gomu Gomu no Mi? The circumstantial evidence definitely points to this being true, especially considering Elbaf's established connection to Nika worship and the fact that the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika would absolutely be considered legendary by giant cultural standards. 14 years ago, someone had stolen a legendary devil fruit from Elbaf during Harold's assassination. 13 years ago, Shanks attacks Who's Who's government transport ship and he steals the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Then 12 years ago, Luffy eats that fruit in Fusha village after Shanks leaves it unattended at Party's bar. So this theory completely transforms our understanding of Loki's situation. If he ate a different devil fruit while believing that it was the legendary one, then his entire identity as the sun god is built on deception. Someone deliberately provided him with a substitute fruit while the authentic legendary devil fruit was already in the hands of the government, traveling towards its true destiny with Luffy. The world government's behavior throughout these events makes perfect sense when viewed as an elaborate damage control operation. They couldn't allow giants to discover that their most sacred devil fruit had been stolen without provoking massive retaliation, so they needed both a scapegoat and a cover story. So they framed Loki for Harold's murder and made him eat a fake legendary devil fruit. Thanks to Loki, they have a perfect cover story for the theft of the devil fruit. They've eliminated political opposition from Elbaf, and they've discredited Loki, who is the only person who is most likely to investigate what had really happened. Who's Who's eventual imprisonment after losing the Gomu Gomu no Mi also fits this pattern. The government couldn't admit that they lost a fruit of cosmic significance, so they needed someone to blame for the failure. Who's Who became the fall guy for losing what he thought was just an ordinary powerful Zoan devil fruit, not knowing that he was actually transporting the key to the world government's ultimate downfall. So yeah, chapter 1152 raises some fascinating questions about what other Straw Hat members will contribute to the final war that's going to be taking place. Will Oda find creative ways to make non-Conqueror's Haki users relevant, or are we heading towards a scenario where only Conqueror's Haki users will be able to participate in the upcoming fights? Chapter 1152 doesn't just advance the Elbaf arc, it rewrites our understanding of character abilities, historical events, bringing together the Gomu Gomu no Mi, Shanks, Loki, and the death of King Harold. And it also sets up the future conflicts which are about to take place. Now, we've reached the point of the video where I do want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you guys think about the insane reveals of chapter 1152? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention, then let me know in the comments, and let me know your own theories about One Piece after you've read this chapter. Thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next One Piece video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.